What's up everyone, it's Benedict here, aka BHL Hudson. Welcome back to the BHL2 channel. Today I'm talking about the new Scream film, Scream 7. New in quotation marks, because it did come out a few weeks ago. My apologies, I'm late. I've been a little busy, but I saw the new Scream film from director Kevin Williamson, who was one of the writers of the original Scream, I believe. Speaking of the original Scream, the film follows Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, who was the protagonist of the first and most of the subsequent films. As she is now a mom living in a suburban, nice life with a husband and a daughter. She has a very secure house, as you would expect for someone who's been Scream movied, 5 times in a row. But now, Ghostface is back. Someone's trying to kill her and stab her and, murder her family, etc., as you'd expect for this poor woman who is constantly subjected to this. And yeah, it follows the Scream formula, which is something we'll talk about as largely a negative here. My relationship with the Scream movies: I've seen the first 3. I've not seen the latter 3, including the Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega reboot series. My mileage varies on the Scream movies. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think the style of humor probably was quite funny, like in the 90s. Watching it in the present day, I saw the first Scream a couple years ago for the first time. I don't know if it holds up super well. And I am more of like a fan of, fantastical Freddy Krueger type of horror, where you can do more creative stuff with it. The slasher stuff, not really that interesting to me. Honestly, I like the characters of the Scream movies. I guess that's what has carried the franchise. So that helps, but in terms of like the comedy and the horror, just not really my thing specifically. So I'm going into this with a pretty more objective perspective, I guess. I don't have a ton of nostalgia for the films. I don't have like a crazy hate for them. I was just going to this for like a hopefully pretty fun, chill horror movie, like a Thanksgiving 2023 type of vibe. Just like a normal-ass horror movie, thriller, slasher kind of thing. And I have to say, with that expectation, I wasn't like horribly disappointed, but it is not a great film. I think it is kind of franchise slop, legacy sequel slop feeling, not without any merit. I think as slop goes, it was consumable, but obviously you would hope for something a bit more from a film. Let's start with the positives, though. Let's talk about what I actually liked. Neve Campbell, first of all, is like the best part of the film by far, which was a little surprising because, I don't know if it counts as a legacy sequel. They've done other later Scream films with her. But in these legacy sequel type movies, when they bring back an actor from an older film, it can sometimes feel a bit phoned in, a bit paycheck-like. I think of the Jurassic movies when they brought everyone back, and, there's a million other examples. She's actually great here. She was, as we'll talk about in negatives, there were a lot of poor performances. She was one of the only performances was like, wow, she's actually quite good. She's conveying the emotions well. I believe her as this character. A welcome addition to this film. So yeah, Neve Campbell, shout out. I will also say, while I wouldn't call it a scary movie necessarily, I think some of the kills were pretty good, or pretty entertaining. That's part of what you go to a Scream movie for. Without getting into too much detail so as not to spoil it, but there is a kill involving someone in a play, I guess, who's dangling from equipment in a theater. That was pretty cool. There's an action sequence with a bunch of tarps, which, is an interesting way to add some tension to a horror sequence. And there's a bit in a bar that was... Sorry, I'm glancing down at my notes. I realized that looked weird. There's a bit in a bar where there's a few kills that are yeah, okay, these are solid horror movie kills. Nothing, nothing crazy, but pretty fun. Some of the action scenes in general are kind of fun. There's a bit where Neve Campbell's on the phone with her daughter, and her daughter, who has never shot a gun before, is trying to shoot Ghostface, and Neve Campbell has to guide her with security cameras and stuff. A little convoluted, but in general, kind of a fun way to spice up an action scene, so I appreciated that. And I have to say, also, and this might be a negative for some people, I personally, by Scream 3, which I saw, I think, a few months ago, I'm pretty sick of the Scream, meta stuff. The first one, it's a little bit more novel, it's kind of fun, making fun of horror movie cliches, and then the second one, it's well, in a horror movie sequel, XYZ happens, and the characters are I like the sequel to Friday the 13th, or whatever, and it's just kind of naming movies, which again maybe was more novel before the internet and Deadpool and all the self-ironic referential stuff we have now. But I don't know, watching it in present day, I'm kind of annoyed by it. And then Scream 3, they're again laying it on super thick. Well, in the third movie, the main character might die or whatever, and I'm I'm good. I could take or leave this. So the fact that this movie doesn't do too much of the meta Deadpoolish well, in a reboot franchise, we have to bring back an old actress. They do a little bit of that. There's a sequence in a bar where they do a bit of that. And I don't know if they got that out of their system in earlier Scream reboots, Scream 5 and 6, where maybe they did a whole thing about we have to do like a legacy sequel. But I appreciated that they didn't go like overboard with that. I was expecting that to be kind of annoying. The fact that it was only minimal, I appreciate. That being said, that does also lead to it not being like all that, like having much personality. Because then if you don't really have that much meta stuff, and the kills are fine, and the characters, as we'll get to, are largely kind of annoying and pointless, then you're just kind of a nothing horror movie. You're just kind of like a normal-ass, bordering on kind of bad slasher slop movie. But we'll get to that. Let's talk cons. I have my notes here on the cons specifically. I have a lot of specific notes of dumb moments, which I'd like to talk about. But first of all, before I get into the negatives, real quick, just to address the elephant in the room, the Melissa Barrera thing. In case you don't know, Melissa Barrera was the star of the last 2 Scream films, sort of the modern, rebooted era of the Scream franchise. And she was fired from the production for some statements she made about Israel and Palestine. I've not looked like deep into this, so I can't like speak on it super specifically, but from what I've gathered, it seems she was fired for being like pro-Palestine and anti the Israeli genocide of Palestinians, which, yeah, just want to say, obviously, that sucks. That's bad that they did that. They should not have fired her. All that, yeah. I would also like to say, I did not pay for Scream 7. I have the cinema subscription, so technically I did not like break any boycott or something. I have my local cinema subscription, but yeah, bad thing. And I think it's interesting that they do sort of, it seems like they're kind of trying to distance themselves from that film, or the Melissa Barrera era of Scream, because having not seen them, I assume they go to New York in the one that Neve Campbell is not in, because they keep referencing New York, and, oh, you weren't there in New York, Neve Campbell, you missed out on New York. And there's a bit at the end where some character says, like, well, it's not a Scream movie without, Sidney Prescott in it. And it felt a little bit like they were, like, pushing away from that, like, trying to say, like, yeah, and those movies don't really count anymore. Let's not think about that too much. But maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I thought that was interesting. In terms of negatives for this movie, first of all, as you'd expect, cliches galore. I've only seen 3 of these movies, so I feel like if you've seen all 6, you're probably sick of this by now, but it's the same thing that I complain about with, like, the Alien movies and the Jurassic movies and this kind of stuff, where I know horror movies are formulaic, but God, I mean, like, how many times can you watch the same thing before you go fucking insane? Like, you have the opening sequence where, people are killed by Ghostface, and you think it's Ghostface, and then it's your friend messing around, and you're like, stop messing around, and then you both hear a noise, and you're like, I told you to stop messing around, and he's like, that's not me, and, you do, I feel like I've seen that scene is burned into my brain from all the movies that have done it, and, there are various just tropes in the Scream movies. They set up everyone who it could be, who's the killer, and then you have Ghostface being completely invincible in the various scenes, despite the fact that it's always revealed that it's just some person, which they make fun of a little bit. They have a little wink-wink at the audience, but in this case, without spoiling who it is, it's like especially egregious that Ghostface is like this, Freddy or Jason type of character that can just like tank all the damage, but anyway, yeah, cliches galore. And on top of the cliches, the characters, which is what has, helped the Scream franchise throughout some of its more dull moments for me. The characters and the acting here fucking suck. I'm sorry. Besides Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, I was not a fan of her daughter in this film. I don't think the performance is very good, and she is one of the most annoying and, like, unreasonable characters I've seen in a film in a while. And I realize it's like a get-out-of-jail-free card of, like, oh, a teenage character is annoying and kind of unreasonable and mean to their mom or whatever. But in this movie specifically, like, they're just, not only is she unlikable, but there are specific moments where I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. Even if you're a bratty teen, you would, like, not feel this way. There's a part where her boyfriend sneaks in her window and, Neve Campbell, her mom, gets upset about it. And they get in a fight about that. And it's like, I don't know, Sidney Prescott has had, like, a Scream murderer try to kill her, 4 or 5 times. I feel like she's allowed to not want guys sneaking into the house via the window. Like, she locks down the entire fucking premises. And then it gets more egregious where, a murder happens, Ghostface is back confirmed, and Sidney Prescott is like to her daughter, I don't want you hanging out with your boyfriend who's like kind of suspicious. He's one of the, people in her mind who it could be. And the daughter gets super upset about it. She's like, not everyone's a murderer or whatever. It's like, but someone did get murdered. Someone right here got murdered. Like, maybe listen to your mom who's been through the murder mystery ringer like every single time. Or not murder mystery, fucking slasher murder saga. And then there's a bit, let me see. And in general, just her mom, Sidney Prescott, wants to keep her safe, and she just keeps getting mad about that. She's like, I don't want to be like a damsel, or I don't want to be a coward, I want to be like a fighter, and it's like, I don't know, man, I feel like you just listen to your mom who's been through this all these times. I just found that, like, the conflict felt forced even for a, like, annoying teen character. In terms of other acting, I thought Courtney Cox was pretty bad. She's fine in the other Scream movies. I never noted her as like a bad actor, but in this, I thought she was pretty poor. And Joel McHale, who I'm a big fan of, I don't get why they would get Joel McHale, the most like famously sarcastic like asshole character guy, to play this like really earnest character. I guess I'll get into spoilers here because it starts to get into like, I guess, who's not the killer. So if you don't want to know that, you can come back to this after you've seen the movie. But spoiler alert, Joel McHale is not the killer. But for a second, like when it started, I was like, is Joel McHale going to be the murderer? Because why did they cast him to act like this? Surely there's got to be a reveal where he turns into a huge asshole. I don't know if he was in the other films, by the way, so maybe that eliminates that possibility. But Joel McHale from Community and The Bear and other things, he's always like a sarcastic douchebag kind of guy. And for him to be like the sweet husband, I love you, let's stay safe, all this kind of stuff, I don't know. I thought it was a weird casting choice, and I didn't really think he fit the role super well. Kind of disappointing, because I got excited when I saw Joel McHale was in this. Beyond the cast, now that we're just talking about, slightly more spoilery moments, I can talk about dumb moments. I just have a giant list here on my phone that I'd like to talk about, of moments that even, it's a slasher movie, it's a horror movie, it's gonna have silly moments, but there's some, specifically one in here, that was like, so egregiously stupid that I feel like a child would not have written this into the script. But first of all, there's some thing about Sidney Prescott's jacket from Scream 1. Like, her daughter wears her jacket, and it's really deep, and it's like, I guess that's the Scream jacket. Like, I don't know, that just felt so legacy sequel, adding importance to something, like, that is not... Like, how would you even remember the jacket you wore in 1996 when you were going through this ordeal? I don't know, I thought that was dumb. Sidney Prescott, she gets a call from the Ghostface killer, and, she clearly, from the way she talks, she gets these calls all the time of assholes trying to prank her, and the guy on the phone is like, yeah, well, I'm not some fake Ghostface. Turn on the webcam, like, answer my video call, and you'll see. And she just answers the video call. It's like, even if you're, entertaining this person who's doing this asshole bit for a little bit, why would you ever answer a video call from someone claiming they're a murderer who's going to kill you, even if you think it's just a stupid prank? Like, why would you not just hang up? And then she answers the call, and it's Stu Macher, a.k.a. What's his name? Matthew Lillard from the first Scream, who, they resurrected in sort of a legacy sequel way, where he's actually not alive, he's AI or whatever. But that was also a little bit goofy, the Stu Macher bits. There's a bit at the end as well. Actually, I can just skip ahead to that. There's a bit at the end where they use like AI. The villain uses AI to like recreate people from the Scream movies, and it's like the villain from Scream 2, the mom, I guess. I don't even remember that she was the villain. And what's his name? David Arquette from the Scream movies, who I guess died along the way somewhere in those movies. Just lame legacy sequel, fan bait, goofy stuff. Anyway, other dumb moments. There's a bit where Ghostface is chasing them through the house, and they've gotten to a completely secure safe room, Neve Campbell and her daughter, and she's like, hey, I gotta go out and get the dad who's outside. I'm gonna go through those secret wall tunnels that they have. And her daughter's like, I'm coming with you, and she's like, okay. And it's like, why would you not leave her in the safe room? She's obviously infinitely safer in the safe room. That seemed like a super dumb decision. Also, just on that scene, again, kind of a cool setup for a horror scene, that you're in the walls of the house and then the killer can hear you and he's like stabbing the walls. But in that scene, when you see him stabbing the walls, the knife is not going far enough in where, like, even if he was right in front of them, it would kill them. It would maybe like scratch them, but it wouldn't, it doesn't seem like it's going in deep enough to actually hurt them. So, like, that bad. So that was a bit weird. And then he gets like a poker or whatever, and that's different. But yeah, sort of eliminated some of the tension from that scene. Then, I mean, the dumbest moment in the film by far. Everyone's a suspect. You think anyone could be Ghostface, and the daughter goes into her boyfriend's car, and the boyfriend has left open his laptop. So it's open and it's on in the front seat of his car, which is, first of all, just absurd. Who the fuck leaves their laptop open and on in their car in the front seat? And then it's open on an editing software where he's testing out if he could AI himself to look like Stu Macher and do this video that Neve Campbell has gotten. And so there's a video of him on a green screen screaming, I'll fucking kill you and your daughter. And then it turns into Stu Macher. And it's like, why would he do that? Why is he so good at it? Because the reveal is he's not the killer, by the way. This is actually genuine, something he was doing. Why would you leave it open? Why wouldn't you mention you were doing this? Like, that is the thing where I was like, even a child would not write this into a script. I mean, that's just like so lazy and dumb to add some extra tension or whatever. And then, yeah, beyond logical flaws, they're just sort of dumb moments that are kind of fan servicey or, I talked about the AI people. And then also at some point, when Courtney Cox enters the movie, it's like a fucking Avengers movie where she drives over the killer and she steps out and she says some, sassy one-liner. And yeah, that was kind of rough. Another problem that I've had in parts with other Scream movies, but I feel like it's more accentuated here, is the tone is sort of strange because on the one hand, like earlier Scream films, it wants to be like a send-up of the genre. It wants to make fun of the cliches of horror movies and this kind of stuff, be self-referential. But then on the other hand, it takes itself very seriously sometimes. Or you're not very seriously, but you're supposed to be invested or care a little bit about the characters and if they're going to get hurt and all this stuff. And so you're like between, like scary movie type of parody and then like an actual horror movie. And it comes across as strange in moments where, for example, one of their friends is murdered in the play setting where she's like hung up by strings and Ghostface cuts her guts out or whatever. And that's one of their close friends murdered, like, visibly there on the stage where they're all hanging out. And then like a couple scenes later, they're all in the bar together, like joking about who's the killer. And they're like the sassy, fun camera helpers that Courtney Cox comes along with. They're like, we're going to determine who's the killer by getting you all drunk and hanging out in the bar. And they're all joking around about it and all this stuff. And they're doing the kind of self-referential, like, horror movie cliche talk. But also, your friend was just fucking murdered. Like, I don't know, it feels like it's from sort of a different, more silly, more parody type of movie. Because then again, you're supposed to take seriously Neve Campbell and her relationship with her daughter and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, if you're going to do, cartoony Scream stuff, especially in the final action scene where, it's like a cartoon intentionally where the killer disappears and all this kind of stuff, I don't know. I feel like I struggle to take seriously the rest of it. And it's not helped by the fact that it's poorly written and acted, the drama of it all. And finally, and this is basically the worst thing about the film, is the twist at the end, the Ghostface reveal. The worst one of the ones I've seen, for sure. I've only seen, 4 now, but super anticlimactic, super fucking lame. Also predictable, I have to say. Once I got over my Joel McHale must be the killer, because, like, why would they cast him in this role theory? Basically, it's revealed, spoilers, that Anna Camp, the woman from Pitch Perfect back in the day, which, by the way, that was kind of funny to see, like, I picture her as in Pitch Perfect when I saw that movie, and now she's, like, playing a mom, like, suburban mom character, and I'm like, damn, time flies, I'm getting old. And it's a psychiatrist from a mental hospital that they see in one scene. Now, the reason it's predictable is because these characters are, like, very briefly in the movie to the point where it's like, well, why would they give that guy sort of these random lines, like this psychiatrist? Why would we spend, like, just a little too much time talking to him if he wasn't going to play a part in it? Same with Anna Camp, like, she's in 2 scenes, and you're like, okay, well, it'd be weird if they have, like, semi-name actor Anna Camp to just, like, do nothing here. And also, the psychiatrist, he backs up basically that this Stu Macher, the guy from Scream 1, is alive theory, which, unless the movie was going to jump the shark and be like, he's somehow resurrected from the dead, which I was like, I don't think they're going to do that. That would be too stupid even for this. Then he's got to be in on it, because then he must be lying, because the guy is fucking dead. So, like, you can piece together who it is. And, yeah, but even with that, or even without that, whatever, it's an incredibly lame twist. It's characters who have been in, like, one scene. They really have no connection to the main characters. Anna Camp's motivation is confusing and stupid, and, like, I don't even remember what the fuck she was rambling about, but I remember, like, rolling my eyes at it. Just like an awful, like, super unsatisfying twist in the effort to be unpredictable. And, like, actually, it's none of the cast of characters that we set up to be the villain. It becomes, like, very anticlimactic and lame. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Scream 7. Coming out of it, I gave it a 2.5 on Letterboxd, because I think, although I have a lot of complaints with it, and it was slop and bad, I had a decent time watching it. Like, I was, like, vaguely entertained, as my friend pointed out when I was telling about the film. He was like, if you're in the cinema, you are just kind of, like, generally entertained, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I sort of, I do become a popcorn-consuming person when I sit in the cinema. I'm like, yeah, well, seat's comfy, it's a nice temperature in here, like, I'm just enjoying the show. Objectively, it's probably closer to a 2 stars, I would say. I'll stick with 2.5 just because for all its problems, I wasn't angry about it. I guess this is like more or less what I was expecting. I was expecting vague slop, and that's kind of what I got. But yeah, not very good, has its problems. What did you think of Scream 7, if you've seen it? Let me know down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, subscribe, check out my main channel, BHL Hudson, my podcast, The Poorly Planned Podcast, my Letterboxd, Real BHL Hudson, and my Instagram, BHL_Hudson. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.